I think we were the first show or radio station to bring this subject up. It was brought to my attention that there was a representative by the name of Ron Gant who wanted to pass legislation to prevent convenience stores and other business locations from selling refrigerated alcohol. Gant has said that his goal with regard to requiring non-refrigerated alcohol sales is to, quote, hit at the source behind drunk driving fatalities. Quote, right now we have made it so easy for alcohol to be available not only to adults but also to minors. That's a different thing entirely, Mr. Gant. The intent here is to curb the access of cold refrigerated alcohol at convenience stores and retail establishments. Gant said it was clear there's a problem and points to what he said is evidence anyone can see. Discarded beer bottles and cans on the roads. Well, there's a lot of litter on the roadways. I agree with you. A lot of times in the afternoon especially, people get off work. They've had a long, hard day. They want a beer, Gant noted. Many people go in and get a 6-pack or a 12-pack, and they begin to drink it on their way home. You know, it occurs to me that Jerry Clower did a fine bit on this matter years and years ago about Marcel Ledbetter and the beer joint. Anybody remember that? They gave Marcel the beer joint. Y'all remember? They wouldn't let him in? Oh, it's a great bit. I'll pull it up. I ain't coming in. I just want you to sell me one of them cold ones, and I'll drink it on the way home. Get on out of here. We don't want your kind in here. Marcel. I think the name of that bit was called Marcel and the Talking Chainsaw, if I'm not mistaken. Look, I understand the background that we're dealing with when we deal with Representative Ron Gant, and I'm sensitive to it. As we mentioned yesterday, if you've not heard the impetus behind this legislation, it is quite simple. Ron Gant was almost killed by a drunk driver. He had to be life-flighted from his automobile, which was almost indistinguishable as to the nature of the automobile. He had to be taken by a life flight helicopter to a hospital in Memphis, where he had a lot of rehabilitation. He was injured in a 2-car crash. This was in Hardeman County when a vehicle crossed the middle lane and struck his vehicle head on. It killed the driver of the other vehicle. Gant was transported by helicopter, as I mentioned, to a Memphis hospital. He underwent multiple surgery. He now walks with the aid of a cane. This is a well-meaning representative who has presented bad legislation. It is a government overreach, in my opinion, because if we follow the logic, if Ron Gant's logic is that we need to do what is necessary to prevent adults from breaking the law, because that's what you're doing, right? Is it not illegal for an individual to drink a beer while driving a vehicle? Belkay, is it legal or illegal for you to drink alcohol while operating your vehicle in the state of Tennessee?
That'll get you put in the pokey.
That is illegal. Correct, sir. Very good. Belkay, gold star. So if that is already illegal, perhaps we should do a better job of enforcing said laws as opposed to putting the impetus and the onus on convenience stores and other marketplaces in as much as how they sell their items for sale to people of a legal age. Huh? Because if I follow Representative Gant's logic that the government needs to intervene to protect people from themselves, then, and I don't think I'm being over the top when I ask this, why don't we just eliminate the sale of alcohol altogether? If the one and only goal is not a matter of freedom, but a matter of security, then why do we not eliminate the sale of alcohol in the state of Tennessee altogether? That would then eliminate drunk driving altogether, right?
No.
Oh, wait, we tried that? When did we try that? What was the result? I've not seen any of the results of this experiment. There was an amendment to the Constitution of the United States of... What? You're telling me this already was attempted and it didn't work? Oh, well, imagine that. I don't know Representative Gant. We have endeavored to get him on the show. Hopefully he'll be able to be with us next week. Seems to be a well-meaning guy with a very, very bad piece of legislation. There's a companion piece to this. The bill is entitled the Tennessee Prevention of Drunk Driving Act. It's sponsored by Ron Gant of Piperton and Senator Paul Rose of Covington. When asked about his impetus for the bill, Rose said, "This was brought to me by a House member that suffered an extremely tragic accident." Rose acknowledged the proposal will face heavy pushback from convenience stores, restaurants, bars, and other venues. I would suggest to you, Senator Rose, that it's going to receive pushback from people that enjoy freedom and enjoy a business's opportunity to conduct their business in a manner of their choosing without interference from government, particularly when they're engaged in, obviously, the legal sale of legal products to individuals who are of legal age. It is up to the individual to follow the law after the sale happens. In other words, it's not the convenience store's responsibility to make sure that they don't pop open a beer before they get home. That responsibility falls on the grown, you-know-what adult that buys the beverage inside of the business to begin with. The companion piece to this would prevent bars and restaurants from serving alcohol above a certain number to individuals that they believe may be driving themselves home. Gant said he continued to work on language related to bars and restaurants serving alcohol. He said the idea would be to place a cap on how much a patron could drink to 2 mixed drinks, 2 glasses of wine, or up to 3 beers, which in and of itself doesn't make sense because I learned in school that scientifically the amount of alcohol in just over an ounce of spirits is the same as a 12-ounce beer, roughly, is the same as a 6-ounce portion of wine. I think that's right. So why are we giving an extra beer to the folks, especially with these high gravity numbers that they're selling? Maybe that could be the next piece of legislation by Representative Gant. Once again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I know the man's gone through a lot. He's gone through a lot of medical issues, but that does not in any way give him the ability or authority to try to encroach on my rights without some level of pushback.
This is not meant to be disrespectful, but I'm sorry, but tragedy does not equate to moral superiority.
No, of course not.
And when you try to do that to other people, with the best of intentions, I'm sure this bill is not a proponent of freedom.
I'll give you an example of what we're talking about, how you can allow emotions to get in front of logic when it comes to some of these matters. So I don't know the full backstory of how this happened in Connecticut, but I lived in Connecticut for about 9 months, and I'm on record as saying if you only have 9 months to live, move to Connecticut, because by the time the 9 months is over, you'll want to die. Hey! Be here all the week. Well, actually, I'll just be here for the rest of the day, and then we'll call it a weekend. I moved to Connecticut, and my good friend who's passed away now, Wayne Gregory, was at the University of Connecticut in Storrs. He was the impetus behind me moving up there. And I moved to a little town called Middletown, which was south of Bristol. I worked in Bristol. And I did not work for ESPN before you asked me. I worked for a car dealership. Crowley Lincoln Mercury. Y'all can look up and see if they're still there. But they were there when I was there, boy, and it was hell on earth. Anyway, I learned that you could not buy alcohol after sundown in Connecticut. You hear me? Alcohol sales stopped at sundown in the state of Connecticut. I think I'm remembering this exactly right. It might just have been spirits. Now, obviously, in bars and restaurants, they were excluded, but the sale of alcohol at the retail level in grocery stores or in package stores and I am certain that I'm right about package stores. I'm not sure about grocery stores because I was a spirit drinker, not a beer drinker. But bottom line was this. I was confused because if you've ever lived in Connecticut, do you know what time it gets dark in the wintertime in Connecticut? Like, I'm not making this up, 4:15. So literally, if you got off work at 5 o'clock, you could not pick yourself up a bottle of liquor to go home with on the weekends because the package store was already closed because it was already sundown. And I did some research as to why this happened. It happened because a lawmaker in Connecticut had a tragedy in their lives, and their son or daughter died because a drunk driver was behind the wheel of a car going back to the liquor store to get more alcohol. And so he got a bill passed saying that liquor stores had to close at sundown, whatever time sundown was. Well, that's good intentions, and I understand the emotions of the tragedy involved, but it's bad legislation. It's encroaching on the rights of the individual, and you're leaning on the lawbreaker. You're actually doing a disservice to those who follow the law. Very, very similar to the manner in which liberals approach gun legislation. Let's attack gun legislation assuming that everyone's a criminal as opposed to those of us, the 90 whatever percent of us that are actually law-abiding citizens with regard to our gun ownership. Instead of going after the criminals, we're going after the guns. Instead of going after the criminals, we're going after the convenience stores. Doesn't make a lot of sense.